Yes, everyone. If you can hear me clearly on the platform you are viewing from, you can just signify. So I welcome you to today's session. I'm Dr. Michael Ekwano. So today I will be running through what our video sessions, what we have talked about from video one. That's the first lecture until lecture 11. So if you are live with me, I'm streaming on across 7 platforms on Twitter at Mest Hub, on Facebook at Mest Hub Mentors, on my Facebook profile, also on YouTube. So I would, for convenience sake, I would take questions from viewers on YouTube and Facebook. So if you're live with me, you can connect directly. Today will be practical coding section and also question and answer session. So we will be taking questions, we'll take answers, we'll take questions from all the videos that I've hosted on YouTube. So if you have any question, you can go straight and put it in the comment section. Then I can attend to your question. So I would prefer my most of your question to be directed to my Facebook page and the YouTube channel, as I will be able to monitor that those 2 platforms easily, so I can attend to your questions. Before I begin to take questions, while I'm waiting for my viewers to connect and get into the stream with me, I would quickly do an overview of the lectures we have taken. I hope you can hear me clearly and there's no issue with my sound. Okay, so we will start from the first lecture where we talked about definition of Python. I'll just do a quick overview of that. So here we mentioned precisely, we described what Python was. I told you like other programming language, just like English language, C Sharp, C++, JavaScript, Java, Julia, Lisp, Django. Mention them. There are quite a number of uh, programming languages. Python happens to be one of them. And Python itself is a high level programming language. It's an interpreted language and it is dynamically typed. So, as a result of that, you will see that Python has gained popularity over the years as compared to the compiled languages such as C Sharp and C++. So, such as C Sharp and C++. And why has Python gains so much popularity? Because of its flexibility of use. Most Python programmers write a Python program just as if you are writing uh, English language. So simple, simplified, and above all, it is easy to learn. I don't know if I have already audience connected. If you are connected, you can go right away and put up your questions if you have any. So also like this video, share this video if you are watching on Facebook. Likewise, if you are watching on YouTube, please uh, share this broadcast, comment, like it, so that we can get to Ripple. So, like I was saying, because of the interpreted nature of Python, it makes it easy for beginners to learn. So, the learning curve for Python, it's not as difficult as that learning curve for other languages. So, it's much more easier to learn Python easily. So that's why one of the reasons. Above all, is that Python is dynamically typed, which means you don't have to. It's not a declarative programming language. You don't have to declare the types of your variables, objects before using them. Also, Python has become one of the choice language because of its open source nature, and above all, it has a, a large community active community base. So if you run into any problem while you are using Python, it becomes it's much easy for you to find solution because of the active Python community. So that's one of the advantages. Also, so applications developed using Python program can easily be commercialized as you don't have issues with copyright infringement. So all of this has given placed Python, giving it a kind of leverage, okay, making it popular. It's also one of the top programming languages used for machine learning and artificial intelligence. Okay, training machine learning models in deployments, in production, and so on and so forth. So that gives Python this uh, this strength, and it's gaining more and more popularity. It's gaining more and more, popularity. So, having said that, also I talked about the IDEs, which is the Internet Development Environment. Uh, there, I recommended three IDEs. Initially, I recommended two, which was Spider. Also recommend PyCharm, and thereafter I brought in a third IDE, which is Tony. Okay, which is Tony. So these three IDs are very good. Uh, it suffices me to mention here also that Python has its own IDE, which is called the IDLE, the Integrated Learning Environment. I will move straight to show you the Python IDLE. Uh, for a start, when you start, just begin to learn, you can use the Python IDLE. But subsequently, it's advisable you use any of these other IDEs. The reason is that it helps you to be able to manage your project. If you are working on large projects, you can easily manage your project. You can also easily trace bugs, and the rest. I'm not saying likewise that the Python ideally cannot do it. The native Python ideally, I know right now it's been improved on, but it's more flexible for you to use the use other IDs. Okay. Yes. So what I would go straight to mention here, I will show you the Python IDLE. I will share my screen and show you the typical nature of the Python IDLE. And there I will write our first program. Though we have written lot and lot of programs before now. If you have gone through all my lectures from the first lecture until the 11th lecture, the 10th and the 11th lecture was released if not too long, just about late night yesterday. It was released late night yesterday, so it's on Python data structure. I'll also touch a bit of that in this broadcast. So I will share my screen and show you the Python IDLE, and then also talk about the different IDs. I want to try to kind of here at this point give some reasons why I chose those three IDs. There are other IDs. There are other IDs. You have Atom, you have Vim. There are very many of them. Okay, Visual Studio. You have very many of them. Okay, so because of the nature of this course, and I know that I'm speaking to audience across all disciplines. So both those who are in engineering discipline, science oriented, arts, just all discipline, right? So because of that, I will try to. That's the reason why I recommended those three IDs. You can use them interchangeably. For instance, the Tony ID is very simplistic in nature. So for beginners, you can easily use the Tony ID. Okay, you can also use it for more advanced projects when you have very large project you're handling. You can use that to develop large code database. Yeah, I've used it at some point in time, but I mostly use the Spider ID and the PyCharm. Now, where do I use the Spider ID? When you are for software programmers, software developers, application developers, you can use the Spider ID, right? Because the Spider ID has an editor, it has an IPython console, which means all your codes you have written in the editor, you can run them and get to look through your code in the IPython console. So with that, you can debug on the go. Now, if you're handling images and you are looping through, large image database, The Spider ID is also a very good ID for you to use. Okay, because you can easily visualize your data or the images or whatsoever you're looking through on the fly without having to close the window repeatedly. That's one of the areas where PyCharm falls short. The PyCharm ID falls short on that area. What it means that at some point in time you have to close your plot window or the matplot window when you're using PyCharm. But when you're handling, for example, when you're training a machine learning model and you want stability, you don't want sometimes uh, your training to be interrupted. Use the PyCharm IDE because of memory efficiency. Okay, so the because of memory efficiency, use the PyCharm IDE. Hence, otherwise, if you know how to manage your memory, because most times when you are training a model, you have a large data set. If you are loading all of them into memory at some point in time during the training and the evaluation, you may have exhausted the memory of your system, and so it becomes a challenge. Your Spider ID may get may be interrupted. In other words, it may just suddenly shut down. And when that happens, your training, is already interrupted. And if you are not saving the checkpoint, then you have to start the training all afresh again. But if you are using PyCharm, you can efficiently be sure, you can be so sure that you will not have such interruption. So when I'm training machine learning models, I often love to use PyCharm, because in PyCharm you can abstract your environment. What I mean by abstract is that you can virtualize the environment. So you can actually have a virtual environment, and you have that ease of training, your model for a longer time. Sometimes I train for as long as 5 days, some as long as 2 weeks. Especially when you are training a GAN model, you train for a longer time. Okay, and so you need an ID that can that will not just shut down along the line when in the course of your training. So those are the major areas where I use this ID. So inadvertently you can use any of them, but our advice for beginners, start with Tony and Spider. As we proceed far into our course and get more advanced, then we begin to use PyCharm, and then you begin to see the advantages and where you have the reasons to use the PyCharm ID. So, having said that, let me proceed straightforward and open the Python IDE by sharing my screen. Let me show you a sample Python IDE, and so you can see what precisely I'm talking about. Okay, so having said this, I'm still waiting for your questions. Though if you're on Facebook, they're watching my stream on Instagram, please go to Facebook and put up your questions. If you are connected on, okay, I can see Kewa is connected on YouTube. If you have any, just type your question. In our subsequent live sessions, what I will simply do is that I would make up room to set up opportunity for my audience to call in, so you can get the opportunity to call and ask your questions. And at least with that, we'll be a little bit more interactive, and it makes it's always good to. I love having an engaging section, interactive and engaging section. So, having said it, just in it, I want to set up my screen so I can show you the Python IDE. Ideally, one second. Okay, I think on this basis, there's a little bit of issue here. I'm using a Linux-based system to stream right now, so I think there's a little bit of disconnect there trying to do this. One second, please, and let me get this up. untidy. Just give me a minute. I'm trying to get it fixed up. Okay. Okay. Let me show you the spider. Let me move to the spider ID and show you the spider ID. There's something I want to do show you over there. All right. Yes, so you can see my spider ID is on. My spider ID is on. Yes, it's on. So this is my spider ID showing right now. Here, I this is this was based on the concept of a namespace that we talked about in one of our video session. Namespace. Okay. You notice that as soon as I open my spider ID, you can see namespace.py opened up because I it opens up to the last files I've worked on. I close this file. This is a names space here. Yes, we talked about the concept of namespace. So in this environment, I have here my editor, and to my right here I have my IPython console. So what we talked about in namespace, let me just dive straight to namespace. What we talked about in namespace here is that Python has a way of managing the namespace. Okay, and what does that mean? That means that I can use a name repeatedly, okay, in different forms in a Python file. I hope you know that such Python file are called module. So now, for instance, this is a namespace file. Let me open another file this time around. It's also a namespace. Let me name it save it as namespace name namespace three. Three. I already have one two in my working directory, so I have three. So if I save the namespace three, now here I want to call, for instance, let me call a function. I want to use something different now to demonstrate this namespace, the namespace. Okay. So let me call just assign a variable, get a variable. What should I call it? Okay, let me use cook and assign cook to let me assign cook to assign 20 to cook. Then I go two blank spaces below and define another function, cook. And this function, cook, doesn't take any arguments, right? This function, cook, doesn't take argument. Or let me say it takes an argument. Let's give it an argument, num, okay? And hit enter. I want this cook to return, I want it to return num multiplied by 2. 2 times twice the number. That's what I want it to return. So I'll hit enter and go outside here. Okay. Now, if I have saved this file, okay, if I call cook and I pass a number, let's say a number of, say a number 30, let's say a number 3, okay, I want to print cook of number of 3. Right? I'll save and I'll run my file. You see here, it prints 6, right? If I go right below and say cook, print cook, and I enter print cook, I will save again and run my file. What do you see? You see that it tells me that cook is a function. Cook is a function. That's what it shows. Function cook at. Now you will see here that it points to cook. Now notice here what Python has done. Remember when we talked about namespace issue? So as soon whenever you run your code, Python searches the namespace through a particular hierarchy, right? It searches through a particular hierarchy. So first of all, it looks at the built-in, followed by the global, the local. Just down way, if you have gone through that video, you would see what I've mentioned. I said print cook. I was expecting that at least it should print 20 because these cookies are there's a cook out here in the in the module file which is 20 outside the function. But no, it prints what? That cook is a function while printing cook of 3. Now let me take this cook. Now that you can see that Python understands that I'm calling the cook with input of 3 and the function, not the variable cook. Let me take this cook out of here and put it right inside the function. Okay, assign cook. Never mind this. Okay, assign cook. So I'll save again and I run. You see, it prints what? It prints 6 and that. Now let me call the cook function. Let me call the cook function again. Remove this and call cook of 3. I'll save this file and run again. You see, it prints 6. Now, if I want to, and I say, okay, give me print cook of, it takes a number 3 of cook. I want to access the cook variable defined inside the function. If I run this, save and run, what do I have? You see, it throws up an attribute error. I know why I've done this. It throws up an attribute error. You see, likewise, the fact that I have the name cook and the function cook, Python understands fully well because why it throws up this cook, because I'm trying to, assess this cook and cook. So now let me do another thing here. Leave this point here. Let's leave this here. Return this back again. Cut this cook out here, and what I'm trying to illustrate, you will get that now and save. Now I've saved this file, right? Now let me go here. This namespace 3 is saved. Okay, let me resave this module file, no longer namespace. I want to resave it, so I will save it as I want to save it as cook so that I can illustrate, you have a better understanding of what I'm trying to illustrate here. So I save it as cook and I click save as cook. Now it is saved as cook. You can see it saved at cook. Okay, right. This cook is in my if I show you, it is my working directory. This is my working directory, messed up and notes. It is in my working directory. Okay, so now let me come to the IPython console here, and what I will do is to import. Now, before I go to this area, I go out, restart what I want to do. Let me mention here that in Python, we import, we bring in, okay, Kewa is asking, 1 second, what is the namespace in the program you just wrote, sir? Okay, you see, the actually namespace in Python actually refers to the memory location, the storage location, where your variables, your object, functions, classes are stored. Okay. Now, if you will notice that when I run, let me turn on this iPython. You notice when I ran the first set of code, it gave me printed 6 and it gave me function cook at this. This memory location here is telling me exactly where that function has been saved in memory. That's what namespace is all about. So what you understand this better when I take this example. Now we import in Python, we import all our module files, okay, into our code. So now, because I've saved this file, cook.py, is now a module, I can import it. Let me import it here. If I import cook and hit run it, you see I have already imported cook. Now, let me type, what it means is that this cook module has been imported into my namespace. In other words, it's been imported into the memory of my system, right? So let me do help on this cook now, because this cook is now a Moodle. If I hit enter, look at what it tells you something about the Moodle file. Remember that there's no documentation string, no doc string in this Moodle file. So it tells you, you see, it tells you name cook. So the Moodle name is cook. It gives you a description of the author. Can you see, if you look at, there's a doc string, actually, the doc string here that is automatically created by Spider. Let me clean up that doc string and say this is a cook function. This is a cook function. Okay. uh, compute the cooking rate. I just using of cooking rate of uh, of uh, participants. Participants. Yes, this is what I've just done. I've removed this. Okay. Now once I need to save it again. Now what I will do is to re-import this. You can use your up arrow to go back up to import cook. I will import it back. I've imported into the memory space. Let's do help. Anytime you have a Moodle file or you have a Moodle or a package, you're not sure of which method is being implemented, what's it all about, just call help on that Moodle. So let me call help on cook, on the Moodle cook. If I call help on cook, can you see what is there? It's telling me that name cook. This is a cook function. Description. It goes further to compute the cooking rate of participants. That's exactly what is in my doc string. Now, after that, then it tells you the file location. Now, now I have the Moodle cook in my namespace. All right. Now, what I do next is that let me now access that cook variable in the Moodle file. So I simply call cook.cook. But I want to see the result. So I say print cook.cook. If you want to access your function, your classes, the object, the variables, a string literal, mention them, any Python data type that is inside a Moodle file, we use a dot notation to access it. Okay, that's what we call the absolute uh that's not absolute referencing, but it's one of the way we access the any object in the. So if I do print cook.cook and hit enter, what do you see? It tells me this is what a cook function, right? That is a cook function. So now it is still pointing to the function cook, but not accessing this cook variable outside the function class. Okay. I'm just trying to do a lot of. Let me cut this cook again, bring it down here after the function and paste here and click save. Again, I will import the cook again, and this time I want to print cook.cook. Now you see it prints 20. Now we can see. Now, because that is the hierarchical structure through which Python runs through the namespace. First of all, it has to go through, you can see that cook variable now has been put in the global namespace. So it reads it directly. Now, if I print again, I'll say I want to print cook of, and I want to access the function now, cook of 3. 1 second. What int object is not callable? Why? In 1 second, please. Let me see why what has happened. Int object is not true. Int object is not callable. It means my cook is not callable. Import cook. Okay, let's see. For we have a cook function of number. Okay, 1 second. Print cook of 3. Moodle object is not callable. Why int section is not callable? I think there is something giving me some bug here. Okay, I'm having some type error. Let me go back again, and I have dot cook of number. Let me first of all check the cook of the function. Call the function there. Int object is not callable. Okay, I think I know what's happening here. That's one of the issues with here. I'm trying to do something. I'm violating some mixing up some stuffs here. So let me, if I want to access the cook function there, I will explain to you what is happening here. we talked about that. I think we have not done that in one of our videos. We'll talk about it subsequently. When we talk about the name guard, okay, the name guard, the global conditioner. So what I do here, let me say from, if I want to access the question of the function directly, I'll say from cook, the cook, which is a module, I will import cook. Now importing the function. If I import cook, I've imported that function cook. So let's see cook of 3. What do we have? Int is not callable. Why type int is not callable? Number 3. 1 second, cook 3.0. Int object is not callable. Okay, sorry about. I think I've polluted my namespace because I had imported cook and cook. I've imported the module a couple of times, so I've polluted the namespace. Okay, but what I'm trying to, I just had to close the console. Okay, what I'm trying to emphasize here about namespacing is that is basically what we do unconsciously is learning to be able to manage our namespace. We'll see a lot of that when we get to functions and classes. So what precisely namespace is all about is that Python doesn't care if you use the same name of a variable for a function definition or for a class definition. So long as so long as okay, so long as you know what you are doing. In other words, if I use the name c equals 2 and I call a function c, Python understands fully well that my c variable, it's a variable holding an integer or a float or a complex or a string, okay, or a list or a tuple or a dictionary. It's also different from that c, which is a function. The only thing is that you will learn not to violate some names which are already keywords in Python. There are quite a number of them. I showed example of them like yield, return, dev, class, none, int, float, list. Okay, these names are I cannot call a variable list because list itself is a reserved keyword in Python. I can't call a variable name class because it's a reserved keyword in Python. If I want to do that, let me close this editor. If I want to do that, all I simply need to do is to write class and apply a trailing underscore after it. By doing this, I have already avoided name conflict in Python. Okay, you see that in my IPython and the IPython. So I can just do this to take it. But if I call class, by just typing class, you see it's already highlighted. It means that that class that I've used there is a reserved keyword. I can't do that. Okay, that's avoiding name conflict. Likewise, I can't call the word list just like this. You see, list is a reserved keyword. But if I do list with a trailing underscore, it becomes a variable for me. Okay, it becomes a variable in my namespace. So precisely what namespace is all about, namespace is precisely memory allocation. Okay, is talking about organization of the memory. Okay, storage location, let me put it that way, the storage location of your objects, okay, or an iterable or main function or classes or just mention them. So that's what namespacing is basically all about. Now, haven't mentioned that, I would go forward. I'm not still getting any question per se. I'm not getting questions. So I think I have to go further, and I don't want to spend so much time on this. I have to proceed and move to the next subject I want to discuss. Okay, right now I will just simply close the Spider IDE. I want to close the Spider IDE, right? So, and open another IDE, Tony. I want to use Tony this time around. I'm just trying to show you around this IDE. So I close this IDE, and the IDE is closed. I will move to share another screen of, let me share another screen and move to another IDE. If you're watching me on Facebook and you have any question, please leave it on the comment section. You can have my live chat is on, so we can communicate easily. Okay, so drop your question there. I'm trying to optimize my hardware so that in my subsequent live stream, we'll have the opportunity to call in and engage. I think that'll be more interactive. So again, I want to share another screen, and this time around, one second. I'm trying to open the Tony ID so that I can share the screen of the Tony ID. Make it much easier for us to. Why is it not opening? Okay. Now, I hope you can see my Tony ID. The Tony ID is on here. We have the editor, and right below here we have the shell. Okay, the shell is like the IPython console. All right, just a minute. The shell like the IPython console. So, so right over here is the editor. Okay, you can write your codes here, and just below here is your. Now, let me use the Tony ID to demonstrate another example of code that we discussed. This time around, we talked about factorial. Yes, factorial. I would not shed more, I would not lay more emphasis on PEP 8, precisely when we talked about building blocks in Python. I want you to read through, watch the video repeatedly over and over. Um, what happens is that the guidelines in writing Pythonic codes, which is as expressed in PEP 8, is something that over time it becomes part of you. Okay, that's what I want to demonstrate with the factorial function that I want to show you right now. I don't want to start reading through them, but I just want to show examples of it. Right. And when we're writing our code, you see that come into play. When we get to function, in my next set of videos, I'll talk about functions and I'll proceed to talk about different types of arguments. Okay. I'll talk about the position argument. I'll talk about the keyword argument. I'll talk about the non-keyword arguments. You will see how these things come to play. After that, I'll proceed to talk about what we call name guard, the main guard in Python, or what we call the global conditioner. Okay, the global conditioner. And then when I get to that part, I want to pick all these concepts, um, uh, pick them and introduce them gradually, so that the learning curve will not be too steepy. Okay, uh, so that's just why the reason why I'm going stepwise this way. So now I want to do that demonstration with the function annuity. You've seen the factorial function. So I wrote another function called annuity.py. I opened the annuity function. This is the annuity function. I've opened it. Here, I'm using this annuity for the sake of those in the social sciences and humanities. So here, you see, I started my definition right on top because I don't have, I'm not using any module. In other words, I'm not using any Python built-in module. I'm not using any Python. I'm not using any local module. So I'm not importing any package. That's why I started top here with this. Also, I have omitted the initial documentation string. Okay, so I can just start my file right away, or you leave a space. It doesn't really matter. But if you have local imports, you have global imports, and then you have documentation strings, they should come right before the function definition. So let me just put a doc string here, and remember in the other video I did, we mentioned that if you have a one-liner dot strings, ensure that that dot string starts on a line and ends on a line. Also, do not do this by, even if you have a multi-line dot strings, don't start your dot string after the triple quotes and you go to the next line. No, start it just immediately after the triple quote. So this module is all about this is just, I'll call it annuity.py. That's the module file, and I'll end it there. That's the module dot strings. Once you have done this, you need to leave blank spaces before your function definition. Here I'm already implementing the style guide, PEP 8. Can you see it? So I have a one liner. If it spreads across another line, then you simply come here. You can now move, hit the tab, you come here. Another reason why I often use Spider is the sake of auto completion and code indentation. Yeah, that's also PEP 8. PEP says always use four white spaces. Do not use tab. Don't use tab. You only advise to use tab for codes that have already been written, using tab just to maintain backward compatibility and to avoid causing conflict. So always use spaces, four white spaces, and two blank lines. After a function definition, two blank lines. After a module definition, two blank lines. But inside a class, after a method definition, a method is simply a function in a domiciled in a class. We'll see that when we get to object-oriented programming. After a method definition, leave a blank space, just one. But if it's outside the class, two blank spaces. PEP 8. So all of these, I don't expect you to memorize them. That's why I left a link of PEP 8. If you are in doubt with any of those, you can just quickly reference PEP 8. Over time, through practice, okay, through constant practice, repeatedly writing codes, doing projects, writing toy codes, these things become part of you. You already have a mastery of it, so you don't have to reference everything. You know when you are doing the right thing and when you are doing the wrong thing. Now, if I want to have a multi-line, then I can go to the next line here and start, describing what the annuity.py does and all of that. But I don't have this handy, so I'll just go back to the first line. Right now, I've gone back to the first line. Then I'll go to my function definition. Annuity, of course, for those in this social sciences, those in the banking, insurance sector, banking, they know this. It takes a value. I call it a P, and then which is a payment. It will have an interest rate, okay, per period, and then you have number of periods, okay, that you pay off. Then you see right below my function definition, right inside the function block, I have annuity functions that computes the present value and the future value. I want to compute both present value and future value. In other words, I want the function to return the present value and the future value. So what are the arguments? Now look at what I've done here. This maybe some people put it this way, but sometimes I like using tabs here. If you use Spider, it automatically creates this indentation for you when you move to arguments. So sometimes I love tabbing this way, and then returns. It moves to the next point here. Inside the documentation string, you can use tabs, but in trying to create, or when you are trying to put in Python indentation, don't use tabs. That's what I'm just trying to show here. Then I put a note under here. This note is just I'm putting the formula to calculate the present value and the formula for the future value that's expressed here. Okay. So I will simply what I have in this is what I'm putting right inside the block. So you end the documentation string. Python says leave a blank, right after the doc string. Inside the function, leave a blank space. That's PEP's recommendation on documentation PEP 257. We looked at that also. Leave a space right in there. So this is my now present value. I'll call it FV. Sorry, future value FV. It is the payment times you have 1 plus interest rate to the exponent of n. So you use double R. Now again, look at what I'm doing here. You will see that I've not inserted necessary white spaces. Now, why some will ask, why don't you put this together. This hurts readability. So right before the present value, you see, I give a white space, open the square bracket, and then I proceed. The 1 plus r, the interest rate, multiply raised to power n, okay, using the exponentiation sign. There is no white spaces left. But right after that, -1, I leave a white space before the minus and after the minus, and then close the main bracket divided by the rate. Notice the white spaces. Also, notice here that in the second line, I didn't use a parenthesis with the minus n. It is raised by minus n. You can write it so Python understands this perfectly well because that minus sign, that operator goes with the number of period. You see some persons put apply parenthesis right in the. You can do this. There's no problem about that. But they are just what we call, you are just inserting extra parentheses. If you use IDs like PyCharm and Spider will pick it up and say, no, these are, you are just inserting extra, these are just unnecessary parentheses, and there will be a recommendation to remove it. Okay, so write it this way, and then return FV and PV. Some, if you check some codes, they will put this as a list. Return a list of this. Please do not do this. Guys, programmers who do this come from MATLAB programming paradigm. That's why they do this. Some other person also put it as a form of a tuple. This way. There's no, do not do this. But in return this separated by a comma, the function returns those values as tuples. Yes, Python returns them as tuples. Now, this we go down and leave two white spaces, two blank lines, and the main function. And define the main function. Now, in the main function, I'm returning two value, FV and PV. You can see here I've written FV in cap cases, in uppercase, PV in as likewise in uppercase. So, and I call the function here. I will explain what I'm doing here when we talk about functions. So I'll put that in the main function. Now, outside the main function, I also call the same annuity and use, of course, and use, we'll talk about f string. Here I'm using f string. That's the printing format. That's one of my next video I will release hopefully next week. Printing format. How do you see the various formatting pattern in Python? Okay. I often prefer to use this because of it makes my code neater and it improves readability. Now, outside this, I have if underscore name underscore equal to underscore main underscore, and I call the main function. Here is a global conditioner. We call it main guard in Python. Now, let me save my code. I'll save it. I've saved my code. If I come to the shell here, okay, come to the shell here, and I want to import this Moodle annuity. You see what happens? As soon as I import annuity, because I've put this code, the main code, under this global conditioner, what it does is that it quickly runs the code inside the main function. One second, please. So what it does, it executes the annuity function inside the main function there. Now, you see, because as soon as I import annuity. What it does that this code here is being executed, the one outside the main function block, right inside the module file, right inside the module file. But if I run this file, I'm not importing now. I want to run it. If I run it again, you see what happens when I run it. When I run the script, first it runs the main file because of this conditional. If this name double underscore name double underscore equals double underscore main double underscore, or what? Just a minute. I just a minute. I need to do something to remove this banner. It's blocking the value. Just a minute. Let me remove the banner. Okay, we'll get back to our screen again. Get back to this. The banner is off. Get back to our screen. Sorry for that little distraction. So now what happens here is that because I have this, I'm calling the init right inside the Moodle file. As soon as I execute, I run the script. First, it runs the main and also runs this. That's why you have this value printed twice. If I comment out this, let's comment out this. I've commented out this code in the Moodle file, right in the Moodle file. I'll save again and I run. If I run it, what happens? It calls because this, if double underscore name double underscore equal to in quotation mark main, what it does is that it runs the main file. Now let me import this time. Let's import now. Let me import annuity. I'm trying to show something. You see, as soon as I imported annuity, what happens? It imports that module, but does not run the main. Now let's print annuity dot, let me print not annuity, let me print name. I want to show you something. If I hit enter, if I print name, it shows what? Main. Now what this is saying here is that if the name, if you import annuity, the module name is already in the namespace, and that module name is what? Annuity. Now what he's saying is that if that name, okay, if you want to import, you import that name, the main file is not executed. But when you run the script file itself, what is executed is the main file, because when you run, Python will check the name of the file you are running in the namespace and says, oh, we have annuity in the namespace. In other words, you are running annuity. And what it says that Python will tend to run the code, okay, in that is main in that module file of the name annuity. So what it means that here is that I can now also, I've imported annuity. I can now say annuity. Now I can call annuity, but I can access that function in the module file. I can access the main function as well. If I say, let me access main first, and I hit enter, I see it executes the code in the main function, which is calling annuity, and you can see the value. Also, let me do the same thing by accessing annuity. This time around, because it returns two values, I will say print. It returns value, so I will say I will just call f and p equals. I will say annuity, because I've imported the module file annuity. I will now dot annuity of uh, let's repeat 2000. Rate is 0.02, and the period is 5, and I'll hit enter. It gives f and p. So I can now, what is the value of f? That's the value. What's the value of p? That's the value. So in this way, what this simply infers what it, we can write our code such that we can, when we import the Moodle file, it imports the function and the classes in the Moodle file. And when we execute that Moodle file, it simply runs what you have under the function main. Now, in some places, you see some other programmers, or what they simply do is to put this code, this main code here. Let me copy it and comment out this to show you what I'm referring to. So here I put a comment out this. I'm also waiting for questions. If you have questions, I'm here to get any question across the various platforms. I'm here to get any question. Uh, I don't know. I'm here to get any question for those watching on Facebook and on YouTube. No question for now. Okay. Now I've commented out this, the main function, the function main. Let me copy, and instead of having main here, let me take this out and paste here. Remove these comments on comments. Now, yes, it's good. I'm good to go. I'll leave a blank space below. Now, what is happening here is that under this, on if double underscore name double underscore equals double underscore main double underscore, I've decided to execute to call the annuity function and to print the values. Right? I've tried to call it and to print the values. Now, let's save it. If I run this file, of course, it runs the code which is under this global conditioner. It runs it. Okay. Now, if I import annuity, it does not run that code. It simply imports annuity. So, what oftentimes most Python programmers do is to put all the functions, especially when you are writing, developing an application, you want to test it on the go. So, you put it under this global conditioner. Okay, I often do this way, but it is better put as a function main so that you can call the function main. Okay, uh, this pattern is the recommended pattern by PEP 8. I used to write my code this other way. I used to do that, but subsequently I've changed to using, doing it the right way, which is enter, call main, and this time around I need to uncomment this main. You can right click and uncomment the main function and then save your file. I think I will have to stop this live streaming section at this point. I've exceeded, it's over an hour. Yes, about yes, over an hour by 3 minutes. I don't want to spend much time here, so that those who are watching the rebroadcast can easily follow up. So for this live section, I just quickly touched an overview of quite a number of things, and I initially wanted to talk about Python data structure, but I will reserve that for another live session, so as to give room for those who have not watched the video, the video number 10 and 11 on Python data structures, to do that. There we talked about list, tuples, dictionary, sets, frozen sets. I gave examples of them. I want to I actually wanted to further discuss list comprehension and then make some recommendation when you use list comprehension and when not to use list comprehension. So I wanted to make mention of that. 1 second. a minute. 1 second. Let me get my screen up and running. Yes, I know you cannot see me. Just a second. I want to fix up a thing and then just do a quick summary of what we discussed today. And after that, we can then call it a day and expect some set of videos on functions and more concepts next week. 1 second. Okay. Notwithstanding, I have a little bit of challenge with my webcam, my external webcam. So with this, I will just do a quick summary uh, of what we talked about today. Like I mentioned earlier, I wanted to talk about give further examples of list comprehension, dictionary comprehension. I wanted to make one emphasis, put a caveat here, and that caveat is you don't just use list comprehension all the time, anywhere. No, where you have multiple conditionals, please do not put them do not abstract them into a list comprehension. Simply use, write the raw conditionals the way they are. The reason is that it hurts readability. Not only that, it is difficult to trace bug. When you begin to have large code base that you work on, and then you begin to have all list comprehension or dictionary comprehension everywhere, it will be very difficult. Sometimes it makes it very difficult for you to trace bugs. So use list comprehension subtly. Don't use it frequently. Okay, use it when necessary. That's what I mean by that. Okay, with this, I would call it a day today. Thank you very much for tuning in live session. Please share this video. Most importantly, like this video. And if you are watching me and you have not subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe to my channel and also click the notification bell beside the subscription button to get notified of my new upload. Until then, I will see you in my subsequent videos. Next week, you will have two set of videos and subsequently two set of videos. Hopefully in a fortnight we'll have a second live session, and in that live session I would make it possible that we have an interactive session where participant or my audience can actually call in and put their question through. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Please subscribe to my channel, subscribe to my Facebook page. Please follow me on Instagram, follow me on Twitter. Also, we can share code snippets, collaborate on projects as we move along our learning of Python. Until then, have a lovely weekend and see you next week. Bye.